Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video, as the latest round of registers for members' financial interests is published for MPs, I'd like to discuss what the submissions from Nigel Farage in particular should be telling us about how MPs in general are serving our interests. Because although I'm going to use Farage's submissions as the basis for this video, my point applies to all MPs. In fact, it's arguably more important for many of the largely unknown MPs currently sitting in Parliament than it is Farage himself. Because a few weeks ago, there was some discussion about whether he would even submit his information properly and what action might be taken if he didn't. Well, unless someone uncovers any obvious omissions, it looks like he has submitted his details as required. A lot is being made of the amount of money he's receiving, including almost £100,000 a month from appearing on GB News alone. However, with one exception, I'm not concerned about the sums of money that Farage is receiving. After all, there are progressive voices in the media who earn more. Not many, admittedly, but some. Do we complain about their earnings? No, the right wing complain about their earnings. So what's really the issue? The money that Farage is making, or what he doesn't say? Or in some cases, where he gets the money from? See, for me, it's the damage he does to the country that is my interest. But in this particular case, it's the motivation for doing your job as an MP, because his submissions do lead into what I think are important discussions about the role of MPs. For example, people may notice that although there's a reference to Nigel Farage's stake in Reform UK as both a majority shareholder and leader, there's no financial details there. This is because the register is for declarable income, which isn't all financial interests or even all income. The news is reporting that these submissions make him the highest paid MP. This sounds odd, doesn't sound very plausible to me. It's almost certain that Rishi Sunak, for example, increased his wealth by more than Nigel Farage last year, but there are plenty of loopholes to stop us seeing the full picture of MPs' financial interests. Like we had an issue a few years ago where Jacob Rees-Mogg was being quizzed, I think it was Channel 4 News, about an increase in his wealth, which wasn't declared publicly, and he responded, oh, how interesting. He was basically making the point he didn't have to declare all of his interests. So although the register refers to financial interests, it doesn't cover all of their financial interests. Richard Tice, Farage's partner in populism, actually is a better example of this. He is way richer than the foghorn of ignorance, yet almost nothing listed on his declaration. I mean, he's making a fortune from his property empire. Now, there are lots of declarations of positions held. Oh, it's a right list. It's way bigger than Nigel Farage's. But no value, no financial details. If you look at Richard Tice's declarations, it looks like he was paid about £40,000. That's like the same as an experienced teacher. But he's got a declared net worth of about £20 million, and it's not just sitting in a bank anywhere. It's like property. He's making way more than £40,000 a year, but the rest is not in his declaration. I mean, he's been lending Reform UK £1.5 million a year. Where's that come from? He's raking in more than £40,000 a year. So these declarations are by no means covering all incomes. And this matters. Oddly enough, however, it matters less for Nigel Farage or even Richard Tice, as it does MPs in general. We should know the full details of all of their financial interests as MPs. I actually see little reason to keep financial details of anyone a secret. But for MPs, there should definitely be full transparency. I mean, full transparency. And the reason is that it should be very easy for us to be able to see if our MP is advocating in favour of business interests that coincide with their own. MPs advocate all the time in a way which will benefit some businesses and maybe harm others. And it's all above board and genuine. Indeed, it might actually be part of their duty to their local constituency or in the best interest of the country to do so, at least in their opinion. They may genuinely be doing something that they think is in the public interest. But we as voters need to be confident that they are doing it for genuine reasons as part of their duty, at least as they really see it, and not because it's benefiting them in some roundabout way financially. And if we do not know the full details of their financial links, just because it's not declarable income, then we're reliant on investigative journalists deciding to have a dig around into a particular MP and report on these links. which is not going to happen in the case of most MPs. But in this case, it is less important that Farage personally makes these declarations, ironically, although I'm using him as an example, because I doubt he has any great influence on government ministers. So his advocacy will have limited impact, I suspect. It would be a more serious oversight for Labour MPs in this Parliament. But where the amount of money in Farage's declarations does matter is a simple look at what's the motivation for an MP doing their job. See, let's be clear. Nigel Farage has done nothing for Clacton. Sure, you wouldn't have expected him to turn the local lives around. Like, he's been an MP for a few weeks. He's not a member of the government or even governing party. There's limited amounts he can actually do for the people of Clacton. But there are things he can do, and he's doing none of them. He's done nothing. He's not visited the constituency, even when they were struck with a tragedy in the form of a major arson attack on properties there. Didn't go. Said he would go, didn't go. Hasn't set up a constituency office, showing no signs of preparing to conduct surgeries. On his financial interests, he had the nerve to say that when he went to America in the wake of Trump being shot at, he went to America in order to, quote, support a friend who was almost killed and represent Clacton on the world stage. Well, first of all, Trump refused to even meet with him, so he wasn't supporting his so-called friend. He was on a photo opportunity excursion, which he didn't get. But secondly, he did nothing to raise the profile of Clacton on the world stage or in the United States specifically. Did he even mention the town while he was there? Someone should ask him how Clacton benefited from his visit to America. But the reality is that Clacton does not have an MP. Why would they think they do? Because this is where the money does matter. Look at the details. Farage states that he receives about £98,000 a month for working at GB News alone, and this takes 32 hours per month. So that's more money in 1 month than he gets paid as an MP in an entire year, because the MP salary is about £91,000 a year. So which job is he going to prioritise? What would you do? And if you think, oh, he could do both, well, look at the time requirements. 32 hours a month for the GB News gig, but he's got others as well. 24 hours per month recording personalised video messages for people. £4,000 a month paid from the Daily Telegraph for 16 hours work a month. You know, there are various other bits and pieces of work in there as well. This is all time which takes away from the time he'd have available to carry out parliamentary and constituency casework. And which is he going to prioritise? He's getting paid well over £1 million a year for doing non-MP jobs, less than £100,000 a year for MP job. And as an MP, there are very few requirements. Like GB News, Daily Telegraph, they all have requirements. He has to spend that time or he doesn't get the money. But as an MP, there's not a lot you actually have to do. There are things you're supposed to do, but very few hard and fast rules on whether you actually have to do it. It has happened, but it's very rare that an MP has been like recalled from Parliament for basically being too lazy. Who are you going to trust to pay attention to constituency matters? An MP who had to give up their job to enter Parliament and they've just switched jobs basically. So their only income is their MP salary. There's plenty of MPs like that. You know, they were just doing ordinary jobs. They've now had to stop those jobs. They're just an MP. That's what they're getting, £91,000 a year. Still very nice, but that's all they're getting. Or someone for whom their salary as an MP is about 6 or 7% of their total income. And that's the declared income. Which would you prioritise? The job paying over £1 million a year or the job paying 91,000? Now, we know that Labour already have a policy of banning lobbying work for MPs in order to try and stop them using their positions for the financial interests of organisations that are paying them to represent their financial interests. But there's also supposed to be a review into other working practices. Now, what I would like to see, I would say that MPs should not actually be getting any income other than that from their parliamentary salaries. Several times the national average already. No MP can plead poverty. Like Boris Johnson, even as Prime Minister, tried to. They can all manage. And if they can't, do you know what? Their ability to budget isn't good enough. They should quit Netflix. But certainly they should not be sitting on our national legislature if they cannot manage on £91,000 a year. I would ban all paid work. Other than there are some exceptions. There is exceptions needed for registrations, medical, legal work. It's fine to do some media work as well. We expect politicians to engage with the public. But where there are exceptions, there's work they can do. If there's a salary attached to it, the income should be taxed at 100%. So you still have a situation where they cannot, even where it's reasonable to say, okay, you need to do that work to carry on being a doctor or something, you need to make sure they can't earn from it. I would say that all MPs should be made to declare the full details of all financial interests. And if they don't like it, don't be an MP. No one's forcing you. And that a special income tax of 100% applies to everything that is not directly connected to their job in Parliament. Cannot expect MPs to focus their efforts on doing their jobs properly if they're paid much more for doing completely different jobs, especially as some of those completely different jobs have, should we say, antagonistic requirements to their duties as an MP. And as I say, this is important for MPs in general. I've used Farage's declarations because they're a really good way to highlight the disparity between what an MP can be paid for being an MP and what they can be paid for doing something completely different, even within the political sphere. But we shouldn't let the spotlight on Farage be so bright that we forget about the fact that these issues apply to other MPs as well. And as I say, right now, because Labour in government, arguably it should apply more to Labour MPs. Allowing MPs to not only conceal financial interests, but to even have them means we can never be sure that parliamentarians are really acting in our national interests. But there we are. Those are my thoughts. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe for further content and click the like button. You can also sign up for memberships if you'd like to support the channel further. Thanks for watching. Until next time, I'll see you later.